Okay. I know it's 6 p.m., but we're still setting up, so I'll let you guys know when we're ready to start. It should be a couple minutes.
Yeah, and hey, Barb, is there any way you can give me permission to share my screen? It says that it's locked, so that'll need to. Thanks.
Let's try that.
Is Mary going first?
No.
Yeah,
You are. That worked, Mary?
yes, it did. Thank you.
Okay, hello, everybody. It is 6:06 p.m. Sorry for the late start. We'll get our computer stuff together. I'm Barb Bosher. This is the Central Tucson Wharf Sites CAB meeting. It's March 26, 2024. Everybody should have a copy of the agenda with them. So we're just going to go straight down the agenda. As we give the presentations, you can ask questions during the presentation. If the project manager feels that's okay, they may ask you to wait till the end of the presentation. So with us tonight, we also have Josh Campbell right here, project manager, Gianna Trujillo, and Mary Charleston is on Zoom with us. So I would ask if you have a question, please speak up so that the people on Zoom can hear you. The microphones are sort of over here, but I'll repeat if need be. Okay, so let me pull the first presentation up. Screen. Let me get this on full screen too, because it's not. Oops.
To the right. To the right.
More?
That one.
Okay. Is that looking right?
I think you have to.
There we go. Yeah. Okay, and also on Zoom, if you can't hear our presenters, please raise your hand or put a note in the chat and let us know, and we'll try to make the audio better for you. Why can't I stop the video?
I think you have to switch presentation because people are seeing the notes version and
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because
All right, hold on.
That's the
Right.
presenter version.
how do I get out of it? Wow, here.
See, you have to switch.
I know, but I am trying to get back to the.
What is that one thing? Hide presenter view.
There we go.
So does it was
Okay.
There it is.
yeah,
Good.
good.
Wait, hold on. I got to turn the. I muted this. Okay. Do you want to move your slides, or you want me to?
I can have you move on. That's
Okay. Okay. We're going to start with Stone Avenue and Grant Road.
Okay.
You're watching.
All right, let me know if you guys can't hear me. I'm gonna do my best to speak for you guys there, and then if you're online, let me know if I need to move closer to the speaker, and I can do so.
Do we have a quorum?
We do. We have 2 members on Zoom, and we have 3 here. That's 5. We've actually lost 2 people on the cab recently, so which I was going to explain at the end. So 5 is a quorum now. Oh, good. Okay, great. Yep.
It's a,
Or maybe we can do that. Do the public order.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Okay.
I'll let you do that then.
Let's let the cab members introduce themselves. Jonathan, you want to start?
Jonathan Salvatierra, San Antonio neighborhood.
Very well. Joe Kane, Tucson Water.
Oh, thanks for coming.
Sante, Kind of wastewater.
Yeah.
Jackie Churchill, from San Antonio.
Thanks.
Bill Allen.
Great. And our cab members online, would you like to introduce yourselves?
Hi, I'm Mark Verhoeksche, and I'm in the Samuels neighborhood, but I'm a water quality scientist at the University of Arizona.
Thanks, Mark. Menachem, do you want to introduce yourself? No. Menachem is also present. We had set up the speakers, they were working 5 minutes ago. so you guys could hear what anyone online is saying, because one of our project managers is going to be presenting from Zoom. I'm not sure why it's not working. Hopefully you can hear it from this and read along in the presentation. All righty. Okay, I think we're ready. Yeah, go ahead.
All right, so again, my name is Gianna. I'm the project manager for the Stone and Grant Wharf site, and I'm going to be giving you guys some updates since our last CAB meeting on what's been going on. So we'll go ahead and get started. Next slide, please. So our site is located obviously in Tucson at the intersection of Northstone Avenue and West Grant Road. We're about due north of central/downtown Tucson area. It's actually just up the street from where we are currently in the school here. This site encompasses two different identified source areas. I've designated as property A and property B. So both are going to be talking about a couple updates on the implemented remedies there. There are two SVE systems, one at each location. So as we go on in the presentation, I'll talk about that in a little bit more detail for you guys. Next slide, please.
Can you speak up a little bit?
Yes. So where we're at right now in the wharf process is actually kind of getting close to the end. We're in the operations and maintenance and monitoring phase. So as I mentioned, we've got our two SVE systems going on. So we're operating those, we're maintaining them, we're checking on them periodically, collecting data, and that's what we're presenting on today. Next slide, please. Just a quick recap for you guys. Just so you guys remember, this site is a little bit different than some of the other sites you're going to see today.
Sorry.
See, that wasn't working a few minutes ago. No.
No?
There you go.
Okay. Can folks online hear me? I assume that you can. So for Stone and Grant, like I mentioned, this specific project is a little bit different than some of the other sites that we have. This is a soils only site. Our contaminant concern is fluoroethylene in soil up to about 10 feet below ground surface. We do also detect soil vapor up to about 100 feet below ground surface. Sorry. This site, we determined during the RI that there were no groundwater impacts, so that's really great news for us. Our main concern for exposure is actually vapor intrusion, especially for sensitive population and residential area along the west outskirts. We did identify the sources as being dry cleaners at property A and property B, as I mentioned before. I will go into more detail on that. Again, soil vapor extraction at both properties has been implemented, and that's going to be what our updates are going to be on today, as well as annual soil vapor and groundwater monitoring that we've done in 2023. Next slide. So we'll start off with property A. This system was started up back in 2017 as an early response action. It's been operating sort of off and on since then. And since our last CAB meeting, we've had two operations. We had one in November of 2022 and one more recently in September 2023. I'm going to show you guys some data from the last CAB meeting, so we'll cover September 2022 through December 2023. And this data is going to be primarily from SPT1 and SPT2. That'll be on the next slide I'll show you. And we'll also take a look at the rebound evaluation data that we determined from that. So for example, in previous presentations, we've discussed that the shutdown rebound on this particular SP system is at least 200 days. It can be more. And we have determined as well that operating the system between 15 and 30 days is effective to clear out all the vapor from the subsurface. So we can go ahead and put the next slide, please. So on this slide is just that snapshot of data in September 2022 and November 2023. So we start off with higher concentration getting back up to 700,000 micrograms cubic meters. We operate our system for about 30 days, and then it drops down, and then we slowly start to rebound back up again. And then our next operation was only 16 days. So we had surmised that a 15-day operation would be just as effective as a 30-day operation, and we tested it out. and found that all the vapors in the subsurface were cleared out pretty quick. So moving forward, we can switch to a 15-day or 30-day and save some money and time there. Right now, we did our last sampling event in December, and you can see at the end of the graph that the concentrations are starting to creep back up again. So we're seeing a little bit of a but we likely won't turn the system back on until we get back up to higher concentrations, either in the 700,000 or 800,000 range before we turn the system on. Right now, I'm estimating in September of 2024, we might turn the system back on again. Next one. So for the actual system itself, the influent concentrations are still following that same pattern. I was optimistic and see the peaks had gradually started to decrease, hoping that we were getting close to the end. But it did look like our last rebound, we had our concentrations coming back up, and that was reflected in our SPE system, which pulled in some additional concentration from several extraction wells. All in all, though, we did remove 55.7 pounds of PC as of October 23. That's operation began. So in total, we removed that much mass from the surface. So that's a great success.
Hey, Gianna, could I ask you to come to this side of the screen? Oh, that won't reach. That won't reach. Just so that they would hear you better here. Okay. So property B, this system started up in January 2022. And I'm going to show you a same snapshot data from the last CAB meeting, so September 2022 to December 2023. This system is a little bit different. It operates continuously instead of as a pulse operation. One success I wanted to share with you guys, I know in the past from previous presentations, you may be aware that we didn't have access to the west side of the parcel on property B, so we were very limited on where we could have wells. Thankfully, the property owner gave us access to that side of the parcel, and we were able to install some additional wells, one behind the dialysis center, which is also behind the dry cleaner area, as well as another monitoring well a little bit to the northwest, kind of headed towards those residential areas that we're concerned about as well. So that was a success that I wanted to share with you guys. And now we have some more monitoring points and ability to collect data in these areas to track concentrations over time a little bit better across the property. So next slide, please.
With the mouse and
So the snapshot for this, if you look closely at the bottom of the graph, you want to look towards the end where concentrations are below 2,000 micrograms per cubic meter. So since September 2022, which is the last data set we have from the previous CAB presentation, has all been below. So this is after the system has been turned online. So we are seeing across the property that concentrations have actually been knocked down. So it's actually really great news. We see an effect all over property B, not just in the areas primarily around the extraction well in the source area. Just as reference, I included the data from the pilot test and from before the system started up, just so you could see how high concentrations were in the past and kind of where we're at currently. Next slide, please. So the system itself has seen pretty consistent influent concentrations over time, pretty much for the past year and a half or so. The last couple of months, though, concentrations have actually dropped down pretty significantly. So I'm in discussions with the current contractor to discuss a rebound evaluation and see about turning the system off and then tracking how quickly those concentrations rebound, if at all. So that'll be what's coming next. But right now we have seen a lot of mass removal. So total mass removed is almost about 50 pounds of PC and TC as of December 2023. And this is total as in from January 2022 to December 2023. So pretty much a good 2 years, we removed nearly 50 pounds. Next. So we also, as I mentioned in the beginning of the presentation, we do site-wide monitoring as well. One of the site-wide monitoring activities includes indoor air sampling of one of the residences we identified during the RI as potentially having vapor intrusion issues. Unfortunately, during the last sampling event, we identified that there was a bias from some indoor activities that they conducted at the residence. So we're planning on resampling there, hopefully in May of this year. So this coming May, we're going to be going back out and hoping to collect new data. It just kind of depends on what their indoor activities are. Depending on what it is, we may or not be able to, but
right now I'm optimistic that we should be able to. Next. I did mention that we do not have groundwater impacts. So the latest data from November 2023 was all non-detect in the regional aquifer. So continued no impacts to the regional aquifer. Great news. We're going to continue monitoring regardless. Next slide. The deeper soil vapor. So these were previously shallow groundwater monitoring wells, but what we found during the RI is that there was no perched aquifer in this area. So instead of having shallow groundwater data, we have deeper soil vapor data. And one thing that was really interesting when I saw this data is that these concentrations have actually dropped at least an order of magnitude from when we first started collecting this data. The highest concentration was still seen in SG6 to the northwest, but it's actually still much lower than what it used to be. For example, in that well, the concentration, I believe, in 2022 or 2021 was about 27,000 micrograms per cubic meter, and now it's dropped to 1,000. So we are seeing a decrease in a lot of these wells as well. Next slide. This is a summary table for you guys as a quick reference. I know some folks like to see the data in a table format versus a visual format, so it just summarizes the data from the previous 3 slides for you. So if you need that. So moving forward, and what we're planning on continuing to do is we're going to continue continue operating SVE system, which includes the rebound and optimization evaluation. So as I mentioned, property B is going to go into a rebound evaluation. Property A has a cycle of rebounds that we continue to do. We are going to continue site-wide monitoring. And one thing I did want to mention is that we do get annual reports from our contractor, which summarizes all the activities they've done. It includes all the data collected, calculations on mass removal. So if you're really into the technical side of things and you want to deeper dive into that, that report will become available after June 2024. I'm hoping to get that up on the website for you guys and available to everybody publicly by August 2024. I'll also let Barb know, and so the next quarterly update comes around that time. You guys will be made aware of that. So that's the updates that I have for you guys. Are there any questions about it? Yeah.
It's like the bias with the front room of the house was painted 6 to 12 months prior. That caused your results bias high or bias low?
So that did repeat the question. Yeah. So the question was about the indoor air sampling bias from painting in the front room of the house. Yes, that does cause a bias high. So we saw higher concentrations than we would have expected. And that's why we want to go back and resample to make sure the samples we get are not from indoor activities, but actually true vapor intrusion concentrations. So,
Just, I know you said this, but, property B, the SVE system,
at this time, the SV system at property B is running continuously.
they didn't write it, they were down stuff.
Yeah, rebound evaluation is going to be probably in the next couple months, hopefully before the end of this fiscal year.
And my other question was, there could have been some indoor air sampling in the building itself of property B. Has that been done?
So we have not repeated indoor air sampling on property B within those current suites. It is something that we could potentially look into because I know there were some issues previously with the property manager and owner and people involved not allowing us to do that. So that might be something that we look forward to, especially as part of the rebound evaluation and also part of site closure to confirm that there's no vapor intrusion concerns in that building anymore.
Yeah, because I was always concerned with that dialysis center right next door. You know, that's a super sensitive population. And, it was coming up in that. That's not a good thing.
Yeah, exactly. So we still are concerned about dialysis center patients. They are still considered our sensitive population at the site, which is also why I was very happy to get those additional wells behind the building.
Yeah, that's up.
Yeah, so for sure.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Yes.
Yes, in some of the documentation that I looked at before the meeting, you mentioned that there was the perched and um, perched, perched and lower groundwater have been sampled annually.
So the regional aquifer gets sampled annually. The perched aquifer at this site does not exist. So that was what was determined during the remedial investigation, was that there was no perched aquifer. So that's why we have deeper soil vapor wells instead of perched aquifer wells, because it essentially dried up and it's not there. So we don't have a perched aquifer to sample, but we do soil vapor sampling at that depth and step.
But there is a regional aquifer underneath.
There
that
is a
area?
regional aquifer, yes.
At what level?
So the water table is around, I believe it's around 200 feet below ground surface in this area.
And the regional
That is the regional, sorry,
at 200 feet?
about 200.
And there wasn't any need to do any testing there? What?
Well, we did testing, we do the annual sampling, and the results were non-detect, and they've been non-detect since the remedial investigation. So we don't have a remedy for groundwater at this site since it's soils only, because there were no impacts to the groundwater at this site. Any other questions?
Anybody online have a question? You can either chime in or type it in the chat. You can always type in a question in the chat at any time. No?
Okay.
Okay. All right, we'll go on to 7th Street and Arizona Avenue. Hold on.
Hello again, everybody. My name's Joshua Campbell. I'm site manager, project manager for 7th Street and Arizona Avenue work site. It's down just north of the tracks, northwest of downtown, northeast of downtown, sorry. Next slide, please.
Yeah. Oops.
So there's our general area and hide that menu bar. The inset, we have this source area here and the other one up here.
Hide it.
So the Oliver's cleaner source, though, the dry cleaning factory burned down in '89, I believe. They had a bunch of underground storage tanks that they used old solvent. And that when that burned down, nobody rebuilt, it was cleared out and has since become a asphalt covered parking lot. The other source, called Stone Ave, it's one of the large old warehouse buildings. It's been a dry cleaner several times. It's been an auto shop, it's been a car dealership. Buildings had a lot of use. Next slide, please. So we're currently in the operations and maintenance phase. We signed the ROD in 2020 and went full bore on remediation since then. Next slide. So it was created, the site was listed in 2000, based just on the Oliver's Cleaners property, with PCE as the primary contaminant because it's a dry cleaner. And then in 2013, City of Tucson, through regular environmental monitoring, discovered the Stone Ave site, and that was added to the 7th and Arizona work site in 2016. Got myself wrong. And we're all assigned in 21. We're a primary means of remediation at the site has been soil vapor extraction to reduce the vapors in the soil. We're actively doing that right now at the North Stone source, and it has been done in the past at the Oliver site. We've based on some of the stuff I'm looking at now, might go back into it sometime soon. Next slide. So we took the latest round of groundwater sampling across the site in this past November. And at this point, we only have one groundwater well that is above the aquifer water quality standard. Next slide, please. And that's way down here. You at the Oliver source. No, I got fingers. You can see this on this slide. You can see how the size of the plume has changed over time. Green being 2014, and then it's just kind of shrunk and shrunk and shrunk. So we have this kind of one mustard yellow blob down here. This has been pretty amazing just since I've been on this project the last 4 years. Especially the North Stone site, I'm seeing a huge decrease in the groundwater concentration there. And just across the site in general. It's been great. Next slide, please. All right, so yeah, so we're still operating the SV at the Stone Avenue property. That's been going off and on since 2017. It's currently in a rebound phase. Like Gianna had mentioned with Stone Grant, we're trying to look at how fast once we turn off the SV system, see how fast the vapors come out of this clay and silt. And to date, at that Stone Avenue property, we've collected over 2,200 pounds of solvents, PCE, a little bit of TCE, and some dichloroethylene as well. Most of those are just degradation products. Oh, that was a bad choice. Everybody see that line? Kind of the green line is our running average for PCE in the soil vapor probes around the North Stone site. And these are in addition, no, these are just the probes that are not connected to the extraction system. So this is basically the concentrations around the perimeter of the site. And we're, the average, as you'd expect, is falling over time. We're getting below our soil vapor screening level remediation targets. In a lot of the soil vapor probes, there's still a few that are exceeding that target, and our average is not quite below what I want it to be. But what's the target? Soil vapor screening level, we're using the non-residential, so it's 1567 per PCE, 1567 micrograms per cubic meter. And you can see we're getting there on most of the probes, but we're not all the way yet. Get the next slide, please. This for the wells that are actually attached to the extraction system. You can see it's following the same general trend. It's a little bumpier. It's more directly related to the operation of the soil vapor extraction system. But we're getting there slowly but surely. Next slide, please. And then there was a question the last CAB meeting about the Union Pacific Railroad passenger terminal, which is south of the Oliver's Cleaners property. I still see a lot of PCE that's wrapped up in the diesel that spilled from that UPRR site, and it seems to be staying there. We've collect samples of the groundwater and the diesel. We get high concentrations of PCE in the diesel, but in the groundwater right under that diesel, we have very little to no PCE. So that's telling us that the PCE in that diesel is pretty tightly wrapped up, and it's actually potentially a source of carbon that is naturally attenuating the PCE concentration. That means the carbon is giving any bugs that could dechlorinate the PCE carbon source to reproduce. But I know we had questions about the UPRR site last time. That site has gone from our UST section to our voluntary remediation program. And then I think it went back to UST. It was closed as a UST site in 2022 based on risk assessments. They were not seeing the volatile organic compounds that they were looking for in the wells they sampled. So although there's still petroleum hydrocarbons in the ground there, it doesn't appear to be a hazardous. I mean, the VOC levels were low enough that UST felt, our underground storage tank program felt safe enough to close the site, and they're not currently doing any remediation of UPRR. And it's not part of the WARF site. It's not something that we would touch, but it does kind of, tangentially affect us because that diesel plume does reach up under the footprint of the former Alders site. So it's there, and it's something we have to deal with in any future remedial efforts. And if anybody has specific questions about UPRR, Joy Kiker is the point of contact for UST, and you can answer any questions specifically related to that site. Next slide. Okay, so what are we doing this year? We already finished the annual groundwater sampling. We're still running the SVE system at the Northstone property. We've done soil vapor sampling at both properties, and yes, we are still seeing elevated PCE vapor concentrations under the asphalt cap at the Alders property. Because the water levels are so low, that means it's got to be in the soil column somewhere. We've had the last soil samples we took didn't show super elevated levels. So what I've done, I looked into using ground penetrating radar to see if there's any remaining equipment from the cleaner, see if there's any plumbing or remaining tanks at the site. On conferring with our contractor, ended up not going with GPR, but instead used electromagnetic and magnetic sensors, and I'm still waiting on the results for that. My twisted hope is that there's like some small tank sitting under that property with some PCE in it that is causing all those vapors we're seeing under that asphalt.
How deep are you talking about? 5 feet?
I'm not sure how deep the electromagnetic.
No, I mean, so
It's with our soil vapor probes are 5, 10, or no, sorry, 5, 15, and down to like 40, 45 feet. And we're seeing it in those first two ranges, 5 to 15 feet below the surface, which implies that it's not deep at all. I could see that being, some leftover plumbing slowly leaking solvents into the soil. So hopefully I'll get the results from that soon, and we'll be able to, find some cause for this. Failing that, we're still kicking around the idea of possibly running SVE again, but because of all that diesel I mentioned, it gets kind of problematic to run an SVE system there. There's still engineering alternatives we haven't fully costed out, so there's possibilities. Hopefully it's as easy as finding a small tank, digging it up, and calling it. Hopefully. Next one. All right, yeah, that's all I got. Again, Josh Campbell, let me know if you have any questions.
You mentioned that the SVE at the level closer to where the diesel sits above the.
Yeah.
Is that in the perch aquifer?
Yes.
That it doesn't necessarily help to do a vapor extraction, and just from that point alone, really want something significant. Why or has anyone ever considered doing the same system that the UP did, where they draw the water, they split, they have a water separator,
Yeah.
and the diesel is burned out in the generator while they're still pumping.
Right.
And they continue to.
And that the question again was, had they we looked at doing a multi-phase extraction at UPR site, similar to what UPR did for their diesel. And that's on the table. I've looked at catalytic oxidation systems. That's what what you would use to burn off that diesel as it comes in. The nice thing about that is you can run the whole system on the diesel once it's primed. Like if you can get a continuous flow of diesel coming out of it, you can just run the system on the diesel, which is pretty cool. But we'd have to do all kinds of costing studies to say yes to that. It's definitely on the table. I'm interested in it. If we can kill PCE and the diesel at the same time, I'm all for it. But we'll see. We'll see.
Well, how strong, an effort to make that kind of instituting that kind of a change is possible, or is it just you have to do cost benefit analysis over just getting the same, the same type of scope of analysis from the soil vapor that isn't doing anything more to extract content?
Well, at this point, the contamination at that site is not really hurting anyone. There's nobody who drinks the water from that site. The site, the Oliver's property is a parking lot, so it's open to free air. Nobody's breathing any fumes. So there's not a huge rush to get it cleaned up. It is a priority, and I really want to see it done. But we'll get there. But it does require, you have to study what kind of fuel we could, or what kind of diesel we could actually pull out of it, and if that's enough to actually run the system. So yes, it's, as you said, it's a cost benefit question, and it'll take some time.
So all the wells downtown don't get used?
More or less, yeah.
And I guess the primary thing I'm trying to identify is, I know that from Alvernon and the railroad tracks, the Alvernon overpass,
okay,
it's from there to the downtown area. It's a 3% grade, and it's part of the aquifer. There's a an underground river that goes toward the downtown area and then veers off toward Marana. Okay, so I mean, obviously this product doesn't just sit there.
Right.
I mean, it stays in that regional aquifer and it's moving. Have there been any plume dimensions outlined or
the product is,
studies at all for that area?
As far as we've seen, it's at 7th in Arizona, the product is not in the regional aquifer. It's only in the perched aquifer. So it can only get so far in the perched aquifer because perched aquifers break apart and as Sod, Stone, and Grant, they dry them sometimes. So it's we can't. Yes, the product does move with the groundwater, and yes, there's been a lot of studies over the past 30, 40 years showing that it moves, but nobody's drinking that water, and there's no evidence that I haven't seen any evidence that the product is making it to the Santa Cruz Channel and getting carried towards me. As far as I know, it's only made it about halfway under downtown towards the center. Yes.
This might be beyond the scope of this project, but it's in the news frequently.
Mm-hmm.
The allocation of water project will change. We will see that.
Yes.
At that point, we will most likely have to consider reactivating wells that have been used for a long time.
Right.
And those wells, I think the ones that would be candidates to be reactivated in the region. And that's concerning.
Rightfully so. I mean, no one's going to start delivering water to the city of Tucson on hopes without testing it first and making sure it's clear. And we know where our sites are. We know, for the most part, where those plumes are. And we will absolutely work with the city of Tucson if it comes to the point where we have to act, or they have to reactivate production wells in Midtown. But I don't think anybody's going to be reactivating any wells anywhere near our plumes. I would hope not.
I would hope not too. And I guess it's a follow-up question. Let's say walls that were thought for change to be reactivated, they're thought to fall away.
Sure.
They're declining.
Right.
Then
Well,
there's second year.
production wells get tested on a regular basis, so it will get detected before the problem gets out of hand. Hopefully, I'm not totally familiar with the testing that goes on the outlet side, but I know there's plenty of opportunities for those volatile compounds to off gas as well once they're pumped out in the delivery train. But yes, this is a bit beyond my scope, and it sounds like I mean, for our part, we will do anything we can to help Tucson Water not deliver contaminated water, and hopefully that ever become an issue.
You might remind everyone what the NATO objective sites for groundwater is to provide for the use of water as a drinking water source.
Correct.
So, you know, if it ever got to that point, like Josh was saying, that we want to incorporate water, and they could only serve water with all drinking water. So if there was a well that produced a lot of water and had a little bit of they have to put some well in.
There's lots of ways to even if end up pumping from a contaminated aquifer. There's places to intercede between the well and the customer. So it's an option. And I know that's something where they're dealing, SRP is dealing with.
Yeah, go ahead. Just a quick one. You mentioned that the diesel firm was under purview for a while. You volunteered for that?
Yes.
Do you know, did they do anything?
I don't have the full history of what happened under BRP. I'm not sure.
I thought part of the problem with UST is it's not from UST.
Right. Well, yeah, but as my understanding is that if there's hydrocarbons, fuel products underground, it becomes a UST site. So but if the polluter is willing to fess up to it and enter voluntarily, they can go under BRP, which gives them a lot more leeway as far as how things are. Okay, John.
Does the pH of the water have a benefit or detriment to the liberation of product from soil vapor or from the purchased regional aquifer? And is more PCE bound in the water because it's more alkaline or more acidic, or is that a condition?
The question was, does the pH of the groundwater affect the volatilization of compounds from the water, from the aquifer? Yes, but I don't have the chemistry to tell you.
More alkaline or more?
I don't.
More acidic?
I'm not sure off the top of my head.
Because we have alkaline water.
Any other questions?
Any questions from anybody online?
Okay, thank you.
Okey-doke. Thanks, Josh. Okay, we're going to turn it over to Mary Charlson to talk about Park-Euclid. Mary, you should have the ability to share now.
There we go. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Here, I will also pop up. Okay. All righty. All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Mary Charlson, and I am the project manager for Park-Euclid. So just to get ourselves oriented, this is the site map for the WQARF site. So Broadway Boulevard kind of cuts through the center of it, but the site boundaries are delineated by this red box, and the source property is here at the mission plant.
Mary?
Yes. Yes. If you're talking, Barb, I can't hear you. Hello? Can anybody hear me online?
Yes, we've got you.
Okay, I'm not sure what's going on. I apologize.
No worries.
I guess we will see if Barb can.
Okay, Mary, give it a try. Let's see if that worked for us. We're trying to get it so that we can hear Mary in the room. Right now, we're having some audio difficulties. I know you guys online can hear her.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right, so I'll just start from the top. So hello, everybody. My name is Mary Charlson, and I am the project manager for Park-Euclid. So this is just a site map of where the wharf site is located. So the red box delineates the site boundaries, and the source property is here at the mission plant. So I know you've seen the slide on the other presentations. Like the others, we are also down here in the operation and maintenance phase. And just to give you a brief site summary, the site was placed on the wharf registry in 1999 following an investigation at the Mission Linen facility. And these are the contaminants of concern. So you'll primarily hear me talk about tetrachloroethene or PCE, and a couple of the others, the cis 1,2-dichloroethene and vinyl chloride, for example. The impacted media at this site are is soil or soil vapor and groundwater. And then you've got vapor intrusion to indoor air at the source area and groundwater from the regional aquifer as potential exposure pathways. So the record of decision was issued in July of 2021, and the selected remedy is as follows. We will be doing monitored natural attenuation for the upper vadose zone, the perched aquifer, and the regional aquifer, and soil vapor extraction for the lower vadose zone. There's also a contingency in place for wellhead treatment if any of the Tucson Water or University of Arizona wells become impacted by the groundwater plume. And here is a slide to help visualize the 4 different stratigraphic zones that I just mentioned and that you'll hear throughout the presentation. So, oops. So this is a cross-section of the site, and here we have the ground surface. So below the ground surface, we have, oh, why isn't it working? There we go. So below the ground surface, we have the upper vadose zone. Below that, we have a thin perched aquifer. Below that, we have the lower vadose zone. And then below that, we have the regional aquifer. And here's an overview of the operation and maintenance activities at the site. So this chart just shows the stratigraphic zone, the type of remedy, and the monitoring frequency. The site also has a soil vapor extraction system that has been operating since March of 2022. Now, the next couple of slides, I'm going to showcase some of the data from the 2023 annual report. I just want to mention that some sampling has occurred since this report was issued, but that data is still being evaluated and should be ready to present by the next CAB meeting. But this is all new data. We haven't seen it presented here before. So first up, we have the upper Vados zone. The remedy here is monitor natural attenuation, and it is sampled annually. The important thing to note here is that there are no COCs that exceeded the calculated Arizona soil remediation levels in November of 2022. That all said, we do have detections for all COCs in the upper Vados zone. And so I've provided a little chart off to the side here that shows what the maximum concentrations were that were detected. The primary contaminant of concern that we see is PCE, and that's what I've chosen to showcase here with the plume map and the data chart. So the highest COC concentration is centered in the source area, really centered around that well, VW-7. And you can see in the data chart, you know, these numbers are a little bit lower than, you know, what they were a couple of years ago. So up here we have the November data from 2022, and then here we have the April 2020 data for comparison. So there's been quite a decrease there. And you'll see that site, or excuse me, across the entire upper Vados zone. So next up, we have the perched aquifer. The remedy here is also monitor natural attenuation, and it is sampled annually. PCE and TCE have degraded and are mostly below the aquifer water quality standard here. So instead, the primary contaminants of concern are CDCE and vinyl chloride. So vinyl chloride is what I've chosen to showcase here. Again, the highest concentrations are centered down here at the source property. Concentrations have decreased over the past few years. So yeah, just, you know, the average concentrations between both vinyl chloride and CDCE are decreasing. And because each of the contaminants in the perched aquifer is above the regulatory standard, I just wanted to briefly showcase where each plume is located. So the blue here is where the PCE is. TC is a little hard to see because it is at the same location as this PCE plume. This is where our CDC is. And then vinyl chloride, which is the same map, or excuse me, the same plume outline as the previous slide, this is where it's located. This chart over here will also show you where the maximum concentrations for each compound that was detected. So next I want to briefly talk about the diesel product that's present in the perched aquifer. So there is a layer of diesel fuel that overlays a portion of the perched aquifer, and we call this a light non-aqueous phase liquid, or an LNAPL. So it originates from an off-site petroleum release. And I just want to emphasize that this is not part of the WQARF remedial activities, but we do measure the product thickness when we sample the perched aquifer. And any questions regarding the diesel product in the perched aquifer should also be directed to Joey Kiker, who is in the ADQ UST section. And, you know, here's his contact information for you. Next up, we have the lower Vados zone. The remedy here is soil vapor extraction with the semi-annual monitoring. So the nice thing about the lower Vadose is there are no COCs that exceed calculated soil remediation levels or groundwater protection levels. I've chosen to showcase PCE again, just to show the downward trend between the rebound monitoring periods. So the March 2023 rebound period data is here, and the February 2022 rebound monitoring period is here. So you can see how everything's kind of on a down, well, it's hard to show on this one. The next slide will kind of show it a little bit better. So the rebound monitoring period, what that means is the system is running and we monitor when it's running, and then we shut it off for several weeks. After the system has been offline for a few weeks, so we sample again to see how the COCs bounce back after they've had time to kind of equilibrate without the vacuum on, so to speak. So here's a graph that kind of shows that. This data is from the SBE system. So we have a line for the, a data line for the influent and for the effluent. The orange vertical lines indicate when the system was shut off, and the blue vertical line indicates when it was started back up. So you'll see a steady decrease just after it was started, and then when it's shut off, that's when we see these increased trends. But overall, everything is on a pretty steady downward trend, and that's what we want to see. Last but not least, we have the regional aquifer. The remedy here is also monitor natural attenuation with alternating biennial and annual sampling. So we do a full site-wide sampling event every other year, and then select source area and satellite wells are sampled annually. The latest site-wide sampling event was done, or was started this past November 2023. So PCE is the only contaminant of concern above the aquifer water quality standard, and the highest concentration is located right near the source area down here. So the down gradient plume concentrations are only slightly above the aquifer water quality standard. So I think here the highest number you see here is 7.4, and the standard is 5 micrograms per liter. Here's a summary of the regional aquifer, the regional aquifer plume over the past couple of years. You can see how it's really decreased in area over time. And finally, here's just a breakdown of our activities for fiscal year 2024. So annual sampling occurred in November of 2023. This included a full regional aquifer monitoring event. The second semi-annual round for the lower Vadose monitoring occurred in February 2024. The lower Vadose SVE system will continue to operate, and the routine maintenance was done in January and February. So really the only thing that you might see done at the site coming up is one of the shallow soil vapor wells for the upper Vadose will be relocated. It was found damaged, so they are going to reinstall it kind of in the corner where Miles and Fremont Road is located. And that will be done in early May. And that is everything that I have. Any questions?
I have a question. At Park and Menlove on the northeast corner, there's a monitor well that I observed many years ago when they were doing a sampling, and there was essentially about a foot to 18 inches of diesel above the water. And I wanted to know, as a routine annualization of these samplings, what is different about that content now?
So what is different about the diesel product now?
The quantity of the diesel.
Oh, so the only thing that we measure is the thickness of it. And I don't have in front of me prior years, but you know, any questions about the diesel product should be directed to Joey Kiker. That's not something that we really address as part of the WQARF program.
Okay, I mean, this is something that goes to whether it's more appropriate to continue doing remediation in the perched and regional aquifer to remove more PCE.
So none of the wells that are in the perched aquifer are used for drinking purposes. And the perched aquifer is it's about 100 feet above the regional aquifer.
I think you're wrong. The perched is at about 170 to 200 feet, and the regional is around 500.
Okay, I'll have to double check that then. Well, the regional aquifer is it's 200 feet to water with that one.
I guess the implication of this is that many years back, maybe 1980, 1990, UP Railroad had a major diesel spill that went on for 2 or 3 years directly into the aquifer. And since it's downstream from the downtown area, this is quite disconcerting. From Alvernon overpass further east, there was a foot of diesel above the water. This was many, many years back after it was discovered. Then further down at, we'll say, Park Avenue crossing, it's about 18 inches on top of the water in the perched aquifer. So that was a really, you know, to me, above the numbers and the presentation of articles and determinations. This means more to me because you can actually physically see what's there. There was diesel. There was a very bright green, luminescent green, like ethylene glycol stuff that was just half as thick as the diesel. So
Right.
These are serious things, because before the record of decision was made, it was determined that that there was a likelihood of getting more product out and encouraging the city to make a determination to say, yes, we do want to use those groundwater sources in the future. And that's why it's so much more important for us to focus on that kind of remediation, not just what the UP Railroad did and was absolved of, but the future of that source. And it's not predicated on whether we decide to use that that well field or not, but because the city can at any time request that these actions be taken for the betterment of that region and our aquifer.
Yeah,
We have
and I hear
PCE, we
you
have
on that. But really the best person to
PFAS.
talk. Oh, go ahead.
We have a number of things that could be co-contaminants. Yeah. So the question goes to how sincere is ADEQ about creating remediation beneath that area for the betterment of our future ground table, water table.
Yeah, I think ADQ is very sincere about it. But the person that would be best to answer those questions would be Joey Kiker, because that's the project that he's working on.
Joey Kiper?
Yeah, let me this is his contact information. He is with the underground storage tank section.
Right.
And they're the ones that are looking into diesel products.
Okay. Let's move on.
All right, any other questions?
Information. Am I supposed to speak into this so I can be heard? Okay, so the statement is, we probably need a presentation to refresh everybody's memory that the perched aquifer is basically a set of puddles. It's not continuous, and it's completely unsuitable for ever harvesting for drinking water unless we have climate change in a direction that we're not anticipating, whereas we suddenly have immense amounts of rain here. So it might be good for there to be a brief refresher on what the regional aquifer looks like and what the perched aquifer looks like. And then maybe the relationship of the L and apple to both. I do think that in the presentation we've just seen, the diagram that shows dissolved VOCs in the regional aquifer might be something that is of concern to all of us, because we are expecting at some point to be pulling water out of the regional aquifer. So it might be good to address how the current remediation strategy is likely to proceed long-term. I also think that because minutes are taken, there's a record of other things that people have asked questions about. So maybe some questions could be pulled out and answered in the next CAB meeting. So just some thoughts. No question that you need to answer.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Anybody online have any questions?
I closed it.
We've got one more question here. Hold on.
I just would like more info on the damaged well.
When they went out to go sample it, I'm trying to remember exactly what happened to it. I think it got run over by some heavy equipment that was driving around there in the flood basin. So that's why they're going to relocate it closer to the street. It's a 5-foot well, so it's not something that will require heavy machinery or anything to reinstall. Last time they installed it with a hand auger.
That's what thank you.
Hello, I just have one quick question.
The table
Hold on, we got somebody speaking here and then we'll get to the next one.
Okay.
With the table of data for the regional aquifer groundwater monitoring, there seems to be a lot of data missing from November 22 and March 2023. It's just not in the table. Is there an explanation for that?
Yeah, so that is because we don't sample every well in the regional aquifer every year. We sample it every other year. So the last full site-wide event was done this past November, so that will be included in the next data that we, the next report that we receive. So it's still being evaluated right now. That's why I didn't have it to present today.
Go ahead, Lori.
Hello, I was just wondering for all these sites, is there like complete monitoring reports online? I'm on the ADQ webpage right now, and I don't think I'm seeing the latest monitoring reports. Do they get posted online?
They can be and usually are. Our website is undergoing quite a bit of construction. So there may be missing items. If you need to see something before we get it all put back together, yeah, email any one of us. We'll get it to you. Eventually, when the communications team is done rebuilding the website and working on it, you know, revamping it, everything should be back up there.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, any other comments at all about any of the presentations tonight before we move on? Go ahead, Bill. Bill's got a question here. Do you have the?
I just ended it.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, just a couple of suggestions for future presentations. One is when you're presenting graphs of data over time, it would be really helpful to also put a line on the graph showing what the target is you're looking for, whether it's a vapor level or drinking water standard or whatever it is. So it's very clear how close we're getting to remediation.
Okay.
And the other suggestion is rather than talking about the average concentration of something going down by 600 micrograms per liter or whatever, put that in some context. Went from what to what? Is that, 6 million minus 600 or 6,000 minus 600 or, what is that reduction?
Okay. Those are good suggestions. Anybody else?
I'll offer in future, you guys can use my facility for something like this. It's
Has better audio?
it has
Got an offer to use it.
What?
Got an offer to use a better facility. Okay.
Phoenix office. I don't know what the travel distance is for CAB members, but
That would be great. We
most of it was about a 10-minute drive from me right now.
that would be great.
I'll give you my card.
That'd be great because we did struggle to find a place after the pandemic to have a meeting. The library's closed early now. We used to hold it at the library. So yeah, I appreciate that. And as you can see, we've had struggles with our audio capabilities. That would be great. Okay, anybody else? Yes, Jonathan.
Yes, I have a question for Tom Titus. In our last meeting for the CAB, that was postponed by more than a year. So we're just barely getting into one meeting a year. I mentioned the fact that I was very concerned about UP Railroad and their record decision that they received by their voluntary remediation that was never identified with the public and seemed to be something that went on in the background. And our major focus with the Park-Euclid was, is this the only source of these contaminants? Now, I wanted to find out what complete record UP filed during its voluntary cleanup for the diesel and the burning off the product on their property at 5 different stations. But essentially, why haven't the Park-Euclid committee members had any access to the complete documents that UP filed with ADEQ? Why have they never allowed, and I focus this toward Tom because he has the exposure and the ability to bring these items into the public domain and to make them available to this group. And yet that hasn't been done. So I would implore Tom to give me some clarification of when we could see this data.
Tom, did you hear that?
Answer that question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Go ahead, Tom.
So I have two responses. So anything that the agency creates is a public record, and you can request anything you want at the record center. And you can send me an email and I'll give you that information, or Barb can give it to you after the meeting. So that's number one. Number two, as we've already reiterated several times in the meeting today, WQARF is not responsible for the cleanup of LNAPL and diesel contamination. That falls under the leaking underground storage tank unit and section. And we provided earlier an email and somebody that you could talk to get all the information you want with respect to that. So I don't know what else really I can do for you other than direct you to where all those documents are, but you're gonna have to take some, you're gonna have to contact him. If you like, I'll tell him you're looking for him and he can contact you. But that's the best I can do for you.
So are you saying that this committee has no direct access to those files unless we voluntarily go with our own money and our own resources to get that information? You will not allow this committee, this group, to see that documentation, to have
What I'm saying is, hold on. What I'm saying is there's not those data isn't my responsibility. You're gonna have to call Joey and talk to him about it, or you can reach out to the record center and they'll provide it for you.
Well, our product is bound in that diesel. That's why it's so considerably important.
I didn't say it wasn't important. I'm just saying you're talking to the wrong person about it.
Yeah.
In case anyone here is not aware, Tom Titus is the manager of the remedial projects unit. So he's basically our manager, and he's on Zoom tonight. So that's why he's answering the question. Yes.
Thanks, Tom.
Anything else from anybody?
I was curious, would it be okay for the UST program to give a presentation at a future CAB meeting? An update on the Union Pacific Railroad site?
Is it related to our wharf sites?
Yeah,
if it's not related to the wharf sites in a significant way, no, the meetings are dedicated solely to the wharf sites.
Let's Barb, let's talk about that and get back to him on that.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to follow up at it. Yes, hold on. I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. Yeah, as long as it's related to the wharf sites, so we can ask. Yeah.
The only issue I can foresee with that is that because they've closed the site, UST might not have anybody available who has any experience with the site at this point, because it's been closed for 2 years now. Well, I'm talking about the passenger terminal. I'm not sure what the status is for the one down by Park-Euclid.
We'll look into it.
Yes.
We'll look into it. Yeah, I've got a note to look into it. Anything else? Can always, send us in questions if there's something you thought of that we didn't get to tonight. Be sure to email one of us or call us. Okay, let's move ahead on the agenda. The next item is to talk about co-chairs. We're supposed to elect CAB co-chairs every year. We don't necessarily get the chance to meet every year, so we tend to do it every meeting. We do have, as I said, a couple of changes in personnel with the CAB. Katie Bulger emailed me and has resigned from the CAB. So that brings us from 10 to 9. And I think Mark has some good news. Mark, do you want to share the news with us?
Yeah, hi everyone. So I have to unfortunately step down from the CAB next year or later this year. I'll be moving to Washington, D.C. To pursue a American Association for the Advancement of Sciences Science Technology Policy Fellowship for a year. So I'll still be working in the water realm and trying to advance policy and protect water. But instead of doing it in Arizona, I'll be doing it in Washington, D.C. There's still a lot of information to work out, but I do know that I'll be leaving here this summer. So in order to not hinder the CAB process and meeting quorum, I'm going to step off of the CAB for at least 12 months. But stay on the newsletters and on the communication so that when I'm back, I can step back into this position.
Absolutely. You got a good luck over here. You probably didn't hear it.
Thank you.
Yeah, we look forward to seeing you again when you get back.
Awesome. Yeah, I look forward to being back. It'll be nice. A little bit of a change from Tucson. Much faster pace too.
A lot more humid.
A lot more humans.
All right, thanks, Mark. So at this point, we do need to elect 2 co-chairs for our CAB for the next year to 18 months, depending on when we're able to meet and vote again. Co-chairs typically, their responsibilities aren't huge. We do plan our meetings based on when we can have at least one co-chair here. So we have to have a co-chair here to have a meeting. So I will contact the co-chairs first and say, hey, are you available these dates, so that we know we have at least that person. And then of course I try to get a quorum to have the meeting. So would anybody like to volunteer to be co-chair? And if not, would anybody like to make a motion to elect anyone else? And please online, please chime in if you'd like to say anything. And you can still vote, Mark, too. So you may not have heard that online, but Jackie Turchik, who's one of our co-chairs, has also just resigned from the CAB. She needs to resign, but she's going to keep up on things. And we very much appreciate all of the work and the time she's put into serving on the CAB. We do appreciate it. However, you can still vote tonight until the meeting is over, or nominate anybody. So would anybody like to volunteer or nominate somebody to be a co-chair? We need at least one, preferably 2.
Barbara, how many members are there?
That makes, we're down to 7. We will be down to 7.
Are specified?
I pulled this up to see it on screen. Yeah, I can't access it right now though. You're right, it does. So I'll look into that when I get back to the office. It may,
Well,
which isn't going to stop the CAB whole.
Right.
Yeah.
I've been on the CAB less time than virtually everybody else. But if nobody else would do it, just to get a meeting going, I would.
Okay. What?
Yay.
Yeah, that would be great. Just so you know, regardless of what the charter says, statute says we have to have 5 people. So we can always revert to statute. If the charter says we have to have 10, we will try to follow that. But if we needs be, that's why we can still be a cab if we have a minimum of 5. So Bill Ellett has kindly volunteered to be a co-chair. Is there anybody else who would like to step into the role for the next year to year and a half? Well, we don't really have a motion yet. I was just going to see if anybody else wants to do it.
I would consider, taking a position so that we can conduct our meetings and
Okay,
keep our quorums and continue the.
that's great. Okay, so Jonathan has also volunteered. So I would need a motion to elect both Jonathan and Bill Ellett to the CAB as co-chairs. Does anybody want to make a motion? Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Second, thank you.
Okay.
All right, everybody agree, say aye. If you're online, you can put it in chat or unmute. Okay, we've got one. Who's that?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, looks like we have unanimous here. Okay, we've got our co-chairs. Thank you very much, gentlemen. I'll email you and let you know more details about it, but it's pretty easy. The next item on the agenda is approving the minutes from September of 2022. You should have received those. Keith, do you want a copy of those right now? Or have you seen them in the email? We've got some on the table if you need to look at them. If you've had a chance to review them, if anybody has any comments or questions, if they want to change anything in the minutes, this is the time to bring it up. Otherwise, we would just take a motion to approve the minutes and then a second and a vote.
I have a question.
Yes.
Item 11 says the next CAB meeting will be held at the discretion of the CAB. Is that really what's going on there?
Well, yes and no. We do leave it at the discretion of the CAB. However, we are, our director would like us to make sure we're in the community at least every year to 18 months.
Well,
So
we're not getting at CAB one.
absolutely. Yep, absolutely. That's always been the case. The CAB, once a meeting, they can contact any one of us at any time and we'll set up a meeting. The minimum would be every year to year and a half, depending.
Is that your opinion, or does that relate directly to the charter? I thought it was at least 2 meetings a year.
No, there is no minimum requirement for a meeting anymore. There used to be in statute, and that was changed to simply say that it is at the discretion of the CAB or as the data warrants. Like we have a milestone report that's coming out, or we have data to present. If you guys don't contact us for a meeting, we will make sure we hold one. So yeah, I mean, if you guys want one in 3 months, and all you need to do is contact me, and presuming we have stuff to talk about, we're not going to have a meeting with nothing to present to you, then we'll have a meeting. If we don't hear from you that you'd like a meeting, then we would do it at least a year to 18 months. I'm shooting for a year, but things happen. Sometimes it's a little longer than a year.
Well, the problem with that is that we get the data about 2 to 3 years later. If you skip 1 year for these tests in some areas, and then it's in maybe 6 months on others.
Mm-hmm.
But I saw someone in our neighborhood, Park-Euclid neighborhood, doing testing. This was 2 or 3 months ago. He said, "Oh, no problem. We're going to have the information to you by the time of your meeting." And that meeting was scrubbed. So it's now we still don't have that same information. So it's more awkward than the first, observation seems to be. So really having at least 2 meetings a year is significant enough to identify things, about how long should the you know, the downtime be between testing, you know, the rebound time. Should it be all during the summer? Should it be all during the winter? What's the highest concentration that's liberated from the soil?
Sure.
You know, when, is it during the summer or is it during colder months? You know, all these things fall into play here, and we can cover the bases if we have at least 2 meetings a year.
Yep, we can have a meeting anytime. If you'd like a meeting and you feel you need some data, we can have a meeting. I can also potentially, if it's available, get you the data via email. I do try to send updates at least quarterly as to what's going on at the sites. If you want the specific data, if it's releasable, we can release it anytime to you. So yeah, anytime you want that information or you want to have a meeting, just email me or any one of the project managers. We're happy to do that. Any other questions on the minutes themselves from September of 2022? Okay, would anybody like to make a motion to approve those minutes? All right, Jackie's made the motion and Bill has seconded. Can I get a vote, please? All in favor? Aye, online? Great, thank you very much. So that's approved. Those minutes will go up on the website by Friday. And then also, the recording of this meeting will be on our website by Friday. It's always available. We typically take it down after 30 days, you know, just to say, I don't know, that's what they like to do, but it's always available. And draft minutes will be sent to y'all within the next couple of weeks, just so you can review what I have gleaned from this meeting in case I got something wrong. And correct me now while it's fresh in your minds. And we don't have to wait 2 years to remember what we did. So, having said that, the next thing on the agenda is to talk about future meetings and what we would want on the agenda. Is there anything in chat right now? No. Let's hear from everybody else. How often would you like to have a meeting? I mean, do you want to just wait and see when you feel like the data is out there, or?
Yeah, I don't recommend having.
Yeah, we should have something to present to you.
All these sites are, you know, things are changing with that. You know, if something comes up and it's got to be moved, then sure. Otherwise, I would think once a year.
So Bill's opinion is, what he's saying is he's thinking once a year, since all the sites are in sort of a monitoring status and not changing too much. Does anybody else have any comments on the issue or online? Anybody have any comments? Okay, so I think how we'll leave it is, if you would like a meeting at any point, call, email me or any of the project managers. If you would like information, specific information, sampling results, if we're able to release them, we will. I will send out the roughly quarterly updates to our CAB members as to what's going on each site. And unless I do hear from you, unless something major happens. Now, if something major happened, obviously we'd hold a meeting. But unless it's just the status quo for the next year, we'll probably do it in about a year. And of course, that all depends on when I contact you next year. If you don't feel like we need a meeting, that's fine too. I mean, I have to get a quorum to have a CAB meeting. If we don't get quorums for CAB meetings, we will hold a public meeting every year to 18 months. So which is exactly the same as this meeting. We just don't do any voting. So we'll do the presentations and there just won't be any CAB, voting or discussion.
There'd be questions and answers.
Yes, absolutely. Questions and answers, everything would be exactly the same. We just wouldn't be approving the previous minutes, electing co-chairs, changing the charter, anything like that. So if we don't get a quorum, we would still have a meeting in the next year to year and a half. So the information will still be coming out to the public, to the community. So, Does anybody have anything else? Because that pretty much concludes what's on the agenda. Does anybody have anything else before we finish up that they would like to talk about or bring up or have questions? Yes. Okay. 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 So Diana has, sorry, are you done? Okay. Diana has suggested again that we try to get a presentation from Joey Kiker and USTs, that we perhaps get a presentation from Tucson Water. Yeah. Yeah, if it's doable, regarding worst case scenarios for their well fields and pumping if any contaminants get there. And a sort of re-showing or representation on the perched aquifers, what they look like, you know, what they're about, that kind of thing. So I'll take those notes down and we'll see what we can do as far as getting those going. Did somebody online have something to say? I heard a voice. Okay, any suggestions from anybody online for future meetings? No? Yes. Question here.
Lost 3 today.
Uh-huh.
You know anybody?
Yeah, yeah, that's, you know, the question was, how do we get new cab members? And the answer is, if we need to, we will sort of canvass the community, maybe send out surveys and things, contact local business owners and residents that maybe have attended previous meetings to see if they'd be interested in serving them cab. We also rely on our cab members. If you know, basically, yeah, you got any friends and neighbors that might be interested? You know, it doesn't matter if you work for a government or a utility, you can be a cab member. So, you know, we go out and look, and we have our cab members help us look as well. So it can be a slow process. It can be difficult. Yes, Jackie. Jackie's going to ask for somebody to replace her at her neighborhood meeting. Mhm. Right. That would be great. Diana's pointing out that everybody belongs to different organizations. What I can do is send out a cab application to you all if you have anybody you'd like to pass it on to, and they can send it in straight to me. Yeah, that would be great. We do have a max on the number of cab members. I'll have to check your charter and see what the max is, but you had 10. So, I mean, yeah, we can easily get 3 or 4 more. Right, they have to be elected. Yes, if we get a cab application, we bring it to the next meeting with a quorum. The cab reviews them and decides whether to admit them. They're formally admitted to the cab. It's not automatic. Exactly. Yes, we do have people, the point was made that we do need people that would show up because the higher number of members, the higher number of quorum or majority that we need to vote. So that is really important. Yeah, it does get a little unwieldy when you get a lot of people obtaining that quorum. Good suggestions. Anybody else?
I was curious, in order to be on the CAB, you have to live within the community involvement area? Is that still a requirement?
No, you have to live, work, or have some interest in the community involvement area. You don't have to live here. You can work here, you can have some business interest, you can own a piece of property maybe that you don't live in.
Okay,
So
thank you.
for instance, if you do work for a water provider, yes, you could be on the CAB, even though you may live Phoenix or something, you know, if your business is here. That's a good question. Thank you. Okay, anything else? Yes, Jonathan.
It's something of more of a comprehensive overview. I know John Kemick, Director of the Water Department, had mentioned that they're instituting a lot of procedures to do total containment, total cleanup, total remediation, taking CAP water, they're looking at that. They're taking at the pump water, drawn out, and doing whatever remediation needs to be done in processes, because we're going to be accepting the biosolids now as a resource.
Okay.
And I would love to see some kind of an overview given to CAB by the water department, Water One, that identifies all of these little things, because we have the PFAS now, and that's a big deal. You know, we're not out of the woods there. We won't be for a long time. You know, a lot of there are different products that have a synergistic effect on the volatility or the toxicity of something. I know that from pharmacology that I took for nursing. And it just seems that this is something that we need to identify and understand.
So Jonathan's suggesting a presentation on other contaminants?
No,
the
program that Water One is doing that will identify and incorporate the testing so that there are no empty spaces that we don't look at for remediation, that we fail to cover.
Okay.
For the policy.
Program. Yeah. Presentation on how would I easier phrase that Water One is using to identify,
consolidate all the remediation testing of all the indices that are
okay,
contributing to
consolidate remediation. Okay, gotcha. Okay. Okay, I'll have to make a note of that. Anything else? I want to apologize for the audio glitches tonight. We had it all worked out in the office, and then it just didn't work here. So I apologize for any audio issues. We're going to make sure we get those taken care of next time. I hope everybody was able to understand, and if you didn't, the recordings will be available. That should be easier to listen to. So I guess we will go ahead and adjourn the meeting. It is 7:49 p.m. and we will see you all next time. Thanks for coming. Thanks for coming.
everyone.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, thank you.
I'm gonna go. Thank you.
Whenever-
Yeah, this would be great. We don't know how much trouble we had with audio.
I was here at the last one too. Just as much
Was
trouble.
it really? Okay, I don't feel so bad.
And that was the first one I've been at, so I don't know. But Josh probably, might be able to say.
I think we actually handled it faster this time.
I think
I think so.
We started-
We started about 45 minutes.
It was,
Well, we thought we had it handled in the office. Everything was working fine, and again, here it's not working. And I don't understand why a state agency can figure this out. We can't seem to figure it out.
those meetings.
So, yeah, this is great. We have other cities where we,
I can't offer for
yeah,
all the cabs, all the.
right, I know, yeah. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you.